Today, I would like to talk to you about the dead.
No, seriously guys, today I'm going to talk to you about the dead, specifically ghosts. My Psychology of Pseudoscience project deals with an investigation of ghosts haunting St. Augustine. St. Augustine remains the oldest continuously occupied European settlement in the U.S. since its founding in 1565 by Spanish conquistador Pedro Menéndez de Avilés. St. Augustine has experienced a number of rather dark and sometimes violent events. But just to list a few, shortly after its conception, it was burned and sacked by the English privateer Francis Drake in 1586. In the 16th century, many unsettled Indians made raids southward to kill Franciscan priests from St. Augustine. In 1668, the town was again sacked and pillaged by English buccaneer Robert Cyril. And in the 1700s, the town again fell under siege by English forces. Eventually, it was admitted to the U.S. in 1821, along with the rest of Florida with the Adams-Onis Treaty. Of course, everything I've explained is just the city's oldest history. Even after its admission to the Union, it experienced strife, firstly due to Native American conflicts and subsequently Civil War issues as well. Considering the city's ominous past, it would not be too unreasonable to think that maybe the spirits of those dead are still roaming the city, right? Well, these guys at Ghosts and Gravestones believe that this just might be the case. So what I'd like to do in this video is firstly discuss my experience with the ghost tour in St. Augustine, and specifically how investigation of ghostly or paranormal activity fits into the greater context of the psychology of pseudoscience. And secondly, I'd like to provide at least some explanations for why people might be experiencing or seeing these sorts of things. Transition. I found the Ghosts and Gravestones tour after doing some research and finding that the tour was quite highly reviewed. I gathered two things from initial interaction with the staff. Firstly, that the tour revolved not only around ghostly activity, but also around the town's spooky past, thereby ensuring that patrons at least get a glimpse of the history of the city and making for a good tour whether or not contact with the other side is made. Secondly, I found that the staff was really pushing patrons to purchase clothing items, food, even donate. At the end of the tour, our guides were even selling $5 storybooks. So if anything, this proves that a successful business model can be made out of just about anything, even ghost hunting. I'd like to now present and then analyze an interview I had with one of the staff members just moments before the tour began. What's your name, man?
Dave.
Dave, how long have you been working here, man? A couple months. Yeah, have you seen any ghosts yet?
I have seen like some work.
It's gonna be a long time. Here's your sticker.
Just on cameras or in vivo?
On camera in the graveyard, like over there.
Oh,
like,
man.
The old school digital cameras back in the day. You can see them.
Some people say that's just a reflection of the gravestones. What do you think about that?
I got a good look at it. It's definitely something.
It's something.
And it doesn't show up on like new
other things?
cell phone cameras and stuff.
Really?
It was something that was only compatible with like the way
With older cameras?
older digital cameras work.
What do you think that might be? Like, do you have an explanation? Wavelengths. You think maybe it's picking up some wavelengths that are there, but like newer technology can't?
Yeah, I think maybe older technology is simpler or something, and new technology filters it out, kind of.
Oh man.
Maybe it's more streamlined, so it kind of bypasses picking up extra stuff.
Yeah. Well, cool. Thanks, Dave. Sure. So I'd like to talk for a minute here about ghost photography. Ghost photography often has more to do with photographic alterations than with anything out in the real world that might be picked up by the camera. For instance, back in the 1850s, when photographers were experimenting with some of the earliest and newest imaging techniques, photographers would use certain techniques like the double exposure to create a sort of ghostly image among regular people and objects in photographs. And indeed, even with advanced technology, there are some unusual quirks that can occur that generate ghostly images. For example, the Grey Lady of Hampton Court actually turned out to be some sort of weird panorama iPhone glitch. So why then does Dave in the interview allude to this idea that newer technology might filter or not capture some things that older technology is not able to? As technology becomes more advanced, we should be able to generate clearer, sharper images, right? We should be able to better identify items and figures that are confused for the paranormal, and better identify those images that truly depict ghostly activity in great detail, right? Well, blurry conditions and dimly lit conditions and grainy photographs all allow for ambiguity. They allow for our minds to fill in the blanks and mistake a shadow or a figure or some sort of optical apparition as maybe a ghost. The poor photograph quality produced by older technology might explain why some people think it would be better for capturing apparitions. During the interview, Dave did mention orbs, and I do want to talk about orbs in a little more detail, but first, here's an audio of our tour guide.
Anytime you feel the inclination to take a picture or a video, do so, whether we're inside or out. Now, if you're taking stills, if you have the ability to use a flash, you want to use that flash, whether we're inside or out. Also, on the stills, you want to take them in fast sequences of 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Because what you're trying to capture, it will be moving pretty quickly.
According to Fujifilm.com, camera designers explain that orbs in photographs are caused by flash reflections from floating dust particles reflecting light back into the camera. They provide an example of what that looks like and even a neat diagram depicting how this would occur. It's interesting to think that maybe our tour guides are taking advantage of this fact by urging patrons to keep their flash on. And it's also likely the tour guide suggested the fast sequence of stills method in order to have us generate blurry images. In fact, using both these methods, I was able to generate photos such as this one, where conditions are perfectly grainy, blurry, and flash so that potential orbs or ghosts might appear. Despite the simple optical explanation for orbs in photographs, one finds no shortage of pseudoscientific quackery on the internet from websites such as BeliefNet, Heal Your Life, or Forever Conscious. I mean, come on guys, you could have at least come up with more convincing names for your websites. Now, I want to talk about the power of suggestivity and also the overall atmosphere of the tour, both in setting and also in the way that our tour guides presented themselves. There was definitely an air of mystery and darkness and a sense of maybe an evil presence lurking amongst the shadows. There was a lot of storytelling and a lot of comments and things that would send shivers down your spine. And my feeling is these things are all done purposefully. So when you maybe you see something move in the bushes or perhaps in one of the sites that we were taken to, you're more likely to ascribe these to some sort of paranormal presence rather than give it some sort of logical reason, because that's kind of the environment that's been set up for you in your mind. You've already been primed to think of these paranormal reasons for things that are going on in the tour. So I'm going to share just a few very brief clips from the tour that are highlighting what I'm saying.
And the state was justifying hanging him. That's why I didn't want to have nothing to do with him killing them people while Steve.
Because when the Spicingers built this place in 1887, this physical land, and also the parking lot that we were just in, all of this land, it was all still part of the Telemato Cemetery. So technically, right now, we are standing on ancient Native American burial ground. So what could go wrong, right? The whole time, I'll be telling you about the many odd, strange, and unusual occurrences that have happened in this city. Some of these things, they go as far back as 600 years. The one thing we like to make sure everybody understands, though, is we don't know why. Why is St. Augustine such a hotspot for paranormal activity?
We aren't constantly using our Type 2 systems where we're logically and rationally weighing out all the pros and cons and all the different possibilities and all the different reasons as to why something happened. For instance, if I'm standing in a haunted, very old building and I hear a creak in the floorboard, I might be very quick to assume that might be some kind of ghostly activity, some kind of ghostly presence, especially when cued, you know, by all these factors, all the spookiness and darkness and strange eeriness and strange noises that you're inevitably going to encounter on a ghost tour. And in my opinion, that doesn't detract from the quality of the tour. If anything, that's what makes it more fun, is exploring how your mind is able to maybe give you a shiver down your spine when you hear this strange story, or maybe see a strange figure in the bushes, or whatever. You know, that's part of the enjoyment. So I really did thoroughly have a wonderful time. Still very much a skeptic, and you know, and I'm now convinced that ghost tour companies have at least some knowledge of how people work in relation to witnessing or experiencing ghostly activity, and they really do use that to their advantage. As you can see, you know, my tour guide certainly did. And on that note, I just like to say St. Augustine is a beautiful and ancient city, and I'm extremely happy to have had the opportunity to go visit for this project. And I'm gonna let Ghosty take over the conclusion of this video.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you enjoyed.